r/Askreddit by Robotainment. Redditors who have tried to hide on your cruise when it ended so that you could stay on the ship for the next round. How did that go? Very specific target audience. I don't know if this counts, but my dad got locked in a toilet cubicle on a ferry to France, and it took several people to find him. The toilet was right out of the way and you couldn't hear him yelling even right outside in the corridor, because the doors were so massive. I guess he could have gone immediately back to England. Could have become a ship toilet hermit. This happened to me on a boat in Malta. I went to pee on the only toilet on board in the basement of the boat as the boat docked for a 4-hour stop. I legitimately thought I might die. It was so hot I thought I might suffocate. Finally some guy found me 15 minutes after I was screaming and pounding on the door. He let me out and then laughed about it to his friends. Used to be in the USCG. We had this happen a few times in Miami. They were all escorted off the ship. Typically the police handle the situation, but if a stowaway was discovered while still in the 3 to 12 mile range, we would render assistance once they were apprehended by the onboard law enforcement. The problem here is that you only know about the unsuccessful stowaways, not the ones that managed to pull it off. Also, is keel hauling still an acceptable punishment for stowing away? Been doing this for a couple of years now. They slapped a name tag on me, and now I work here. Hope they also took your bank account and post a monthly salary in there. Late to the party, but I can chime in and further add proof if needed. I worked for Carnival for 5 years, specifically in debarkation. Additionally, I worked for Disney Cruise Line and Princess Cruise Line. Here's what happens. We give you a card upon check-in, and that card is scanned the minute you step on board. Additionally, it is scanned when you leave the ship for either complete debarkation or excursions. At the end of your cruise, debarkation starts around 7 AM. Come 10 AM we receive a list of people who have not yet had their card scanned. It's impossible to get off the boat without getting your card scanned, unless you jump into the water. Haha. Then a manland begins to get you guys off the ship, so we can put a new 2200 to 2600 people on it. We do not start boarding new passengers until every card from the previous voyage has been scanned. In my experience, nobody ever waits and tries to hide. If you do take a cruise, book a flight that's a little bit later in the morning and go with the latest checkout time you can. So many people aim for debarking around 7 o'clock to 9 AM. Literally over 1700 people will be waiting in lines that'll take well over an hour to get out of. Instead of waiting in line for the hour, stay on board and eat some breakfast, take some last minute photos, and then when your time comes just leave, go through customs, and be on your merry way. I'm the one-stop Redditor for all cruising tips. Haha. Edit. I'm starting my commute to work, but I'll be sure to answer all questions when I get there. Edit 2. Alright, I'm back. Time to answer these questions. Edit 3. I'll still answer questions if you PM me. Also thanks for all of the kind words and gold and silver. It's been a fun thread. This sounds US specific though. Here in Sweden there are some really low class party cruises on the Baltic Sea called the fuck boats where they don't scan anyone. And I guess there are all different levels in the world in between up to the luxury stuff. So not all cruises scan people. It is all electronic card swipe now. Everyone monitored all the time. All of the japes and scrapes of being a stowaway, one step ahead of the stewardess in the past now. Sounds like it would be easier to just get a job there. I worked for Carnival. We will find you. We know you're in the ship, and we'll want you to get off, so I can take a short nap before I have to do it all over again in a few hours. Not me, but a couple decided to hide to try get another week out of their holiday. This was while we were halfway through our holiday, so we heard it all. Dozens of announcements calling for them or anyone who's seen them were made throughout the day. Their rooms were searched and everything they owned in that room was seized apparently. The ship left port late by about 90 minutes, but they were eventually found and escorted off the ship. When the crew decided to check the identity of every passenger on board, all of their stuff was left in their room. How did they think they would get away with it? I know you're planning something original, poster. I can neither confirm nor deny these allegations. You may enjoy listen to the Stowaway, This is Criminal.com link episode of the podcast Criminal. It's not someone who just didn't leave, but someone who plotted to go on a cruise without paying. It's a good listen. That was a good episode. I don't think it would work today though. And it sounded like she really didn't have a good time on the boat anyway, with no place to sleep and nothing but buffet snacks, not to mention constantly being worried about being found out. A little different. I was going through a really hard bout with depression in 2012 and really had nothing going on in life besides an overpass job at a gym. My parents decided to do a family cruise in March as our Christmas present. I was actually planning on saying goodbye to my family at the end of the trip and just getting off at the last island and not getting back on. Then I found out the cruise company would alert local authorities that I didn't get back on. I wanted to just island skip for a while instead of backpacking through Europe to do some thinking and adventuring. I didn't want to end up in some shitty Caribbean jail. It is right they don't just leave without passengers as they could be lost and stuck. What happens if they find you and you don't want to get back on board? I have no idea, but can think what you would go to jail for. You'd be all on your own though if you couldn't get home. As someone about to embark on a cruise, this thread could hold vital information. Have fun on your cruise. I met my wife on one 7 years ago. And are you a penguin? I don't know if this counts, but on the last night of a cruise my friends and I got really drunk. Well, I don't know how the hell, but I ended up somewhere passengers shouldn't be in a goddamn supply closet I believe. The ship had docked and there was a 2-hour search for me. Still drunk I couldn't find a way to get out to the room where the supply closet was, but the door was locked. The crew thought I was trying to sneak another ride, but after reviewing the cameras they clearly could tell I was nowhere near sober. So they let me go on my way with a good laugh. To this day I still don't remember making my way down there. That's kind of adorable somehow. I can imagine them all bring up the security footage like what a jerk. Well, see how sneakily he planned this. Oh, well, oh wow. Has very drunk and very confused isn't he? Edit, autocorrect. Day 247. They still don't realize. I have been living off of seawater and Ritz crackers for the past month. I can't let them see me in the cafeteria. People tell me all the time, dude, just leave the boat, but none of them understand. Using the quarters I find on the ground, I was finally able to pay my cell phone bill again today. I got a text from some guy named Boss Dumb Name telling me that has gonna put me in a thing of fire. Whatever, probably insane. I got a scam text from some guy named Jane calling me husband, and from police. Regardless, I'm probably gonna fry up the phone battery for more fire today. I sometimes wonder what life is like outside of the ship, but quickly dismiss those thoughts after I realize that there is no such thing as living outside of the ship. Around day 50 or 60, people in blue coats began to harass me, saying that I must go or they're gonna find me or something. They're probably just heroin addicts, though they scared me enough to go incognito until they're gone. I think they might catch you when they do the lifeboat drill at the beginning. Then why go to the lifeboat drill? I found some crew clothing in the laundry and put it on. The crew was changing out at the last stop so nobody would recognize my new face. In the 2 days between the ending of one round and the start of the next leg I found myself enjoying the nods from other crew members and a level of respect I wasn't used to having dressed as a normal passenger. I decided that I would chat up some of the bar staff and see if I'd have any luck getting free drinks. After a few beers, this new bartender came on. An old British guy. Looked like he'd seen some stuff. He had a nickname for everyone. Governor, amigo, pal, comrade. I guess he'd really traveled a lot. He kept serving me drinks with a sly wink, like from one old sea dog to another. It came time to settle my bill, as the ship was prepping for departure, and when I went to give him money, sure enough, he told me I didn't have to pay. No sir, he said, this one's on me, Captain. No trouble at all. Good luck getting us out of dock, and he pointed over my shoulder with his chin. I turned around, and the rest of the bridge crew was there with the security detail. And then there was an episode of This American Life I think where a woman did this, but back in the day, like the 60s or early 70s, there were seating charts or something in the dining room, so she couldn't sneak in to eat, and things that she assumed would be open most of night, like bars, weren't. She lived on a lot of bar garnishes and had to pretend she was drunk who kept passing out in the lounge. It was a lot less fun than she thought it would be, with very little sleep and cleaning herself up in public bathrooms, while worrying she would be caught doing so at any time. She had to sneak back into her own country because she hadn't brought a passport. I read that link, and while it was interesting, there were also a few occasions where she came close to being possibly assaulted because one of her methods for fitting in involved being flirty with the single men on board, and more than once she had to extract herself from an overly touchy dude, and once she also woke up to a crew member with his hands down her top. Which makes you think, what happens to you if you bump into a real predator? You could go missing and no one would know where you are because you weren't really there. I'm a stand-up comic who works on cruise ships 3 to 4 months out of the year. Guests who take forever to leave suck. Employees of the ship can't leave until every last guest has exited the vessel. So if a guest is taking their time to leave or hiding, they are potentially keeping over 100 employees from going home. And many of the employees are on the ship for like 8 months, so every second counts when they just want to get off and start heading home. Get the fuck off the boat. I was on a ship traveling from Portugal to China. We took a wrong turn somewhere, landed on a remote island, and now the captain's enslaving all the locals. I think a lot of you guys are underestimating how easy this would actually be. They count people. There are 2,000 passengers on a decent sized cruise ship, and at no point was everyone funneled through any sort of checkpoint, except when getting on and off the ship. You have to swipe a card, yeah, to buy something, or get into a room. You don't have to swipe it to go to the buffet, or get into the theater. A cruise ship is the size of multiple city blocks when you add up all the deck space, and there are 2,000 people walking around with no ID on them. If you wanted to stay on the ship, you could 100% do it without all that much difficulty. Your only real challenge would be finding somewhere to sleep that didn't get you harassed, except you swipe your card at disembarkation. The database would show you're still on board. Considering the number of people who die on cruises, it's quite likely they have a process to go find old Martha who sat down on the loo and will never stand up again. Wow, I can actually kinda answer that. Okay, so it was not a cruise but a ferry. Also, we didn't hide on purpose. It was the ferry from Ceres, Prince Edward Island to the Isles de la Madeleine, Quebec, Canada. A 12 hours ride. We embarked at 2 AM and found a very quiet spot to sleep. We slept through the landing and no one woke us up because no one actually saw us. When we woke up, we saw the islands going away from us. Result, we spent 36 hours on that boat. Sorry for my bad English. Ships tend to have really good tracking of their packs. There's security cameras everywhere, and when you disembark they give the ship a really good walkthrough. All the passenger areas are easy to see through and have no hiding places, and if a pax were to be in a crew area, it happened every now and then we would notice immediately. I've never had passengers try to stow away, but I've definitely seen crew run away from the ship. Mostly happens in American ports. Personally, when I was working on ships, I couldn't wait to get the fuck off them every time I saw land. Why people cruise to begin with is beyond my comprehension. It's a change of pace vacation. Typically cruises are very low stress. Just fly/drive to the port, embark, and everything else is taken care for you. Unlimited food, access to resort level amenities, a preset itinerary, and life at sea, which is totally refreshing for us land dwellers. Serious tag. Hey, it doesn't work like that. The correct format is serious. My friend did this. He can't handle his drink and we were on a mini cruises from Newcastle to Amsterdam. After a good few drinks he loses it, rips a table from the wall and throws it away, took his top off as well as another friend's top, and threw them overboard shouting "Wee I." He was quickly sent to the brig and had his passport confiscated, meaning he couldn't get back on the boat after our day in Amsterdam. So he tried to hide under the bed. According to his story, he couldn't fit, so his feet were sticking out a bit, and said he got caught straight away. They threw him off, and we never seen him that day. Imaginably, when we got back on the boat to no friend under the bed, we were concerned. We chose his closest friend to call his dad to say we have lost your son Mayo, and his answer was, oh I know, we booked him a flight. Turns out he ventured off the boat in a panic, somehow managed to find the British embassy and explained his situation. Not sure how, but they organized him to fly home without a passport. Every time I see him, I ask him to tell me the story again for a laugh. While I won't rule it out as an impossibility nowadays, it would be extremely difficult. First, you're scanned on and off the ship, so they'd know you never got off. So now you're hiding on the ship. WTF are you going to do? You won't be able to get into or back into your room. You won't be able to eat or drink on some of the cruises, since you'll need a valid key card or wristband. You'll be carrying all your stuff around, since you'll have nowhere to store it. You might make it to the first port without being caught, but then you'd probably want off, and when you get scanned off you're busted. I'd say it's 99.9% likely you spend your stowaway cruise in the ship's jail cell until you get back to home port. Not exactly, but I feel like there are very few people who could answer this. I was on a 3-week cruise through the Bahamas. Hated life, my now ex-wife, my job. We stopped at the island of Nassau, where we could get out and tour for the day. My wife stayed back on the ship, as we had gotten into an argument and wanted nothing to do with each other. We were instructed to be on that boat by the end of the day, so after a couple of hours at a tiki bar, I headed back. I didn't want to go back, it was paradise. When I got on the ship, they checked me in, because when I exited the boat, they checked me out. I then headed to the stern, half drunk, and jumped off of the boat as soon as we left the wharf. See, there aren't beaches next to the wharf. It's a residential area. The houses are right on the water. There is, however, a small landmass in front of the wharf. I realized that I probably won't be able to go up onto the main island, so I headed for the landmass. I got up onto the beach of the landmass, exhausted, but happy, nonetheless. I guess my wife told the staff, which told the higher-ups on the ship, who contacted the Nassau authorities. I obviously didn't know this at the time, so I was just relaxing on the beach, wondering if there would be a ferry coming by or something, so tourists could visit the little island, so I could GRT on it like a tourist, and go back to the main island. Well, I did get my ferry to the island, but in the form of a Nassau Police Department boat. Spent a couple of days in a Nassau jail. Cousin ended up flying out to bail me out, thanks, Jerry. Paid a fine, got a divorce, moved to the countryside, and the rest is history. What year was this? Because I'm 99% sure I was on this trip. Ship went nuts because someone jumped overboard and everyone thought it was a suicide attempt. The details match up an insane amount. Glad you're okay, anyway, man. Every cruise ship has an employee section that includes a club/bar areas. I once got access after hitting on a bartender. Beers were $1 and everyone was wasted. That's an area I would look into. You'll never find it on your own, def need an employee to show you how to get in. Dude, this should be any or all of them. 1 a life pro tip, 2 life hack, 3 how to vacation frugally. Seriously. I was on a cruise where a guy tried to climb down the ship into the lifeboats. Of course, he fell overboard and died in the water, and we all woke up a few days before Christmas to a cruise worker on a jet ski pulling his waterlogged corpse out of the ocean. So, I can't recommend it. But hey, his ghost is probably still there. This should be tagged serious and be upvotes like crazy, because I bet there are some pretty good stories out there. An ex of mine was a onboard cruise photographer. I remember asking her something similar before, and she told me they swipe on and swipe off everyone, on every stop, at every time. She did say that she'd known people to try and stow away, but basically it turns into a massive fucking Easter egg hunt to find the person. The liner she was on always awarded the staff member that found the person with some sort of bonus, but she never told me what it was. I remember her saying that someone caused a ship to be something like 6 hours late to leave because they'd done such a good job at hiding. Eventually they were found, or gave themselves up, and were arrested by port authorities. I tried it once. There was a homeless man called Harry who had stowed away as well, and I got talking to him. It turns out that he helped some rich guy out who rewarded him with a ticket for the cruise ship. The captain wasn't too pleased because he looked kinda scruffy and this was a nice looking ship. The captain let him stay, but he was only allowed to use the facilities at night and had to sleep in a maintenance room. The cruise was quite big, so he had quite a lot to choose from. There was a casino, a restaurant, a mini golf course, a bingo hall, but this man chose to go in the swimming pool. He had never been in a swimming pool before, but he saw the diving board and thought he would give it a go. Turns out the guy is a natural. He is so good that the captain was beyond impressed and wanted to showcase him to the guests. The captain let him stay there for a few months to practice and to entertain everyone. However, it wasn't enough for the captain. He wanted it to be bigger and better every time. One day the captain decided to make the diving board much higher, which didn't seem to bother Harry much. The big day comes around and this thing is tall, and I mean tall. Harry was a little bit intimidated, but he decided to go along with it anyway because he finally had somewhere to stay. He began to climb what he described as a never-ending ladder to heaven. Halfway up he noticed that he could no longer see the swimming pool and that the clouds and seagulls appeared to be closer to him. He finally reached the top and took the dive, knowing full well that he could completely miss and die. He dived perfectly, no splash at all. However, because of the velocity at which he was going at, he went straight through the floor of the pool, piercing through several floors, past the casino, past the tennis court, past the golf course, past his bedroll, until he went straight through the ship itself. Everyone thought he had died, but after 5 minutes he resurfaced, much to everyone's disbelief. The captain couldn't believe it and wanted to know how Harry had done it, to which Harry responded, "Well Cap, I've been through many a hardship in my time." Can only answer quickly. 3 AM here. Typing from concierge desk, which is empty for now. On 19th free trip currently. Kids disembarked after first trip. Now grown. Living somewhere. Wife remarried, I think. Someday I'll see my grandkids, but I'm going for a world record here. I'm a legend, apparently, known as the ghost of Carnival Splendor. Signing off now. Gotta get in kitchen for scraps before breakfast crew shows up. Then it's back to my utility closet on deck. Redacted. Cheers. Unfortunately I don't have a real answer, but I had a dream about this. I befriended an employee of the ship and stole all their work clothes and walked around like it was nobody's business. The only reason I got caught was because they sent me to clean some family's cabin and I couldn't fold towel animals. That sounds like the worst heist movie plot twist ever. Act 1. Who are we gonna get to crack the safe? How about Kansas City Jimmy? He's the best in the business, yeah, but he can't fold towel animals to save his life. I don't think that's relevant here. Act 3. You there, newly hired steward. Quit slacking off in the safe room and come fold these towel animals. And so help me, if they're not the most perfect towel animals I've ever seen. My ex told me this story. When we split up he said he was messed up mentally about it. If that's your excuse then okay. So he went on a singles cruise with his buddy. The problem was, he was in his early 30s and everyone else was like 45 plus. The cruise isn't helping his mood at all until they land in Jamaica and him and his buddy take a taxi to some bar in the bush. There he meets a pretty girl, wins a game of pool. Life feels good again. They hear the warning signal for the cruise, so they get back on the boat. My ex was shook and didn't want to continue, so he put important documents in a plastic bag and jumped off the boat. Although he's an oofy, he swims like a rock and Jamaican authorities had to rescue him. Then they questioned him for 24 hours. Are you sane? Do you have money to get home? Until he was able to call the bar chick he had met to verify his story. They released him and gave him 3 weeks to visit/play on the island. The rest of the story is pretty boring. He stayed and played hide the weenie for a few weeks until he started getting hit up for money all the time. But the funny thing was, I met a guy from Jamaica. I live in northern Canada, and I told him this story and he knew about it. Apparently my ex's island law now lol. Not a cruise, but I hid in the mall with some friends once overnight. Crazy stuff started to go down after hours when I found a secret Russian base hidden below the Foot Locker. My friends and I took a secret elevator shaft down to an underground laboratory where we saw some sort of monster from another dimension. Just hide in one of those big tube things. Works every time. Won't happen. You have to check out with your cruise card / it. If you weren't checked out, they'll announce on the intercom to check out, whilst sending out teams to look for you. After 20 minutes, they will announce again, upping the ante, saying you are in violation of maritime law. Once they find you, you're never going on a cruise again, and will face a hefty fine. Source: friend worked for cruise lines for 4 years. Here's a podcast about a lady who snuck on a cruise ship. Criminal. Stowaway. Overcast.fm link. Not a stowaway, but a cruise ship worker for Royal Caribbean. This is actually a pretty regular occurrence, probably happening about once a month / every other month. My favorite was when someone had gotten very high on acid and locked themselves in the bathroom because they were with their family and didn't want them to find out. The cruise docked, and when it was time to go, the family was panicking trying to find him. Security eventually found him, and he admitted that he was planning on leaving his family here while he did the cruise a second time. Honestly, there was no way he could have gotten away with this, because they make sure everyone is off the boat before we let more people on, and if we didn't find him, then the cleaning crew would have. Never been on a cruise, but I started a game with hide and seek with my dad when I was a kid. Haven't found him yet, and he hasn't found me either. It's probably a candidate for entry into the Guinness Book of World Records at this point. Like and subscribe for good luck, you handsome gentlemen.